I have a solution for you Microsoft refugees and you Apple refugees that have spent good money on computers, only to find that now you're being upgraded into, more payments to be made. If you're sick of having your files stored in the cloud that are no longer your private business, it's now someone else's business, and you have to pay for the privilege of accessing that, I have a solution. Actually, I've got a couple of solutions. One of the solutions looks like this. Another solution looks like that. I have some explaining to do. You can see 3 computers here, or 3 screens, right? This one here is a beautiful Intel-based iMac. It's not that old. It still looks magnificent. The screen is gorgeous. And really, they're a beautiful machine. But Apple has decided over the next year or so, basically, whatever's installed on it now is all that will ever be installed on it. This, represents the common Windows machine that's been around for like 5+ years, that is now being abandoned by Microsoft, forcing you to upgrade it to a Windows 11. And this is a running version of that, running Linux. Part of my solution is how I've set up this configuration. So if you're wanting to switch to Linux, which this is a very good solution for the other 2 problems, there's some very simple steps that I've set up for you to transform your computer world over to Linux. Use Linux and steadily find your way into it without being forced to abandon everything you've got or throw away everything you've got. So you just keep what you've got running and you're able to use the new system, explore opening the files or whatever you're using, whether they be Word documents or whether photos or whatever it is you manage. What you have on the Windows environment, use it on Linux until you find you're at peace with using Linux instead of whatever it is you're using now. So this gives you an excellent bridge from the old to the new. How I've achieved that is I've set up a file service on the Linux installation. So your Windows computer can save to the Linux machine as if it's just another drive. You know how you have like drive C, drive D? Well, I've set it up in this case to being drive I. So let's look at this PC, and we have local C drive, and we've got the machine name is HP003, that's arbitrary, but you can see that it's labeled as I:, so I drive. Let's have a look at that. Now there are files there. I use Windows to make this folder, and I use the Linux machine to create this folder, just to show they're both using them. And then I have this local send directory. Okay, so if you want to use your iPhone, your Android phone, whatever device, including other Mac devices, basically local send is something you can install on pretty much everything. I've got local send installed on that Linux machine right now. To access it via our phone, we can click on, I've got local send installed, so that's what it looks like. We can say, we want to send a file, which is media. So I pick the video, confirm that's what I want to send. Now I've just got one machine listed here called Mystic Apple, which corresponds with Mystic Apple on that machine. And I just press that and it starts loading. You might have noticed a screen change. Now, it defaults to the download folder. So if we open the downloads folder on the Linux machine, downloads, that video is playable straight away. There it is. Not much of a video, but there we go. Okay, so to make it available to the Windows machine, the best way is to copy it into that folder on the server. Now I've just copied it there. I don't know whether that showed up as a screen change here, but now we can look at that same video here. And there we have the same video playing on the Windows machine. So I've just sent it from my phone to the Linux machine. So you get the file, make sure it's a valid file, then store it on the server. So you're not filling your server up with just cruft. You're filling it up with things that you actually want to keep. But then it becomes available to whatever you're using. Now, this Mac over here, that's a bit of a lie. I've just got a screenshot showing here as, you know, a full screen image, but it's actually running the same Linux distribution that is running on this machine. And basically, this is a daily driver for me. This is a perfectly good computer for everyday use. I've got 3D modeling software, you know, Office, that sort of stuff, video editing. It even does some modest AI tasks, but the AI is on my terms. So Intel Macs run Linux Mint really well. In fact, this machine runs about twice as fast on Linux Mint than it did on whatever the version of Mac OS was that was on it. I typically, when I get a computer like that, I keep the system that's on it for a little while, just to understand what it's like, and then I replace it completely with Linux, you know, when I'm happy that I'm not missing anything. So I'm a bit of a cautious, slow step maker, and that's why I've developed this very plain, simple to use installation. It's basically, you walk up to the machine, everything makes sense. So I'll just switch over to recording of what this is doing. So I'll just close all these windows to keep it simple. So you've got a desktop like this, it's quite simple. You've got the Linux Mint logo here. I've added a few things down the bottom here. There's a default, these three things are default. But anyhow, let's click on the Linux Mint logo, which is kind of like the start button on Windows. You'll feel kind of at home when using Windows. Coming to this, it's kind of the same recipe of how to use a computer. It won't feel unfamiliar. It'll be just kind of mostly boring, I think, in a good way. Now, on the left-hand side, you've got obviously shut down, log out, lock screen, open the file browser, terminal, settings, and then you've got the software manager and the web browser. Well, settings is pretty straightforward. We'll click on settings, and it's kind of control panel-esque, or a bit. Mac OS is fairly similar. You know, I mean, they're all doing the same tasks. Everything makes a bit of sense. It'll be pretty straightforward. You can see everything is pretty obvious. I don't think there's much to say here. Themes are pretty easy to get to. Let's just do that. If you feel like a dark theme, you can do that. Light theme, which is a bit of a retina burner, and a mixed, which is the default. Choose whatever you like. You can also pick accenting, which is kind of nice. So just change those folders so that the colours were quite a lot more pleasant to my eye anyway. Blue, red, this was a mauve sort of thing, magenta. I kind of like the two-tone. But anyhow, it's just easy to get to. Everything's easy to get to. Okay, so I'll just close that window. So, you can see the settings. Straightforward. One really, really sweet thing about Linux distros, and they all seem to have something like this, is this software manager. This you'll find to be such a breath of fresh air, such a pleasure to use. Now they've got kind of, it looks like ads, but these are kind of the opposite of ads. These are presentations of things that people like using, which at your option you could install, but they're not trying to sell you anything. That's quite the opposite way around. They're trying to help you. So any of these programs, these are popular obviously, but then we just go down a little bit further. We've got accessories. So these are categories. Accessories, fonts, games, graphics, science and education, flat pack programming, office, sound and video, internet. So let's just have a look at, I don't know, science and education maybe. So Stellarium's like let's call it a universe, like astronomy type program. It allows you to look at all sorts of details in the night sky. There are absolutely millions of items in their databases. K-stars, planetarium, what else we got here? Physics simulators, we've got Bible. Anyhow, there's a lot of software. It's a matter of just looking for whatever it is you're after. Of course, you can search something, like we could go chemistry. Okay, so there's packages related to chemistry. Inkscape is kind of like Corel Draw or Adobe Illustrator. Blender, well, you may even know Blender, it's a 3D modeling program. GIMP is kind of like GIMP is kind of like Photoshop. There are just so many things, like games, there are squillions of games. Not that I've actually installed any of them, but there are just squillions of them. What else we got going? Fonts. You can see there's lots of font packages, still loading them. They're just fonts and fonts and fonts and fonts, lots and lots and lots of fonts. What else we got going? If you want to do programming, of course Linux is really a rich, there's a rich history of programming on Linux. And you can see there's a lot going on in there too. So there's just so much available. Office. There's the likes of LibreOffice is already installed. So if I click on the Start button in the Office category, I've already got Office installed. So you probably won't ever need anything other than LibreOffice for just about everything. Although an interesting package is this Lix document processor. Yeah, long story. I'm getting the weeds here. Okay, so that was the software manager. If I wanted to install something, like let's say you wanted to install a DOS box. I don't know. It is a DOS emulator. It allows you to put, if you've got old DOS games or if you want to run DOS software, which in fact I do run DOS software on one of my machines. I click on install. It has to install a few other bits and bobs. Go OK. Password again. So it's installing. So installing software is actually really quite easy. So I can launch them from here, but we'll actually find it on the menu now. I'll just close that menu. If I don't know what I'm doing, I'll start typing. There it is. And if I wanted to add it to the panel, I'd go right click, add to panel, and there it is down there. So if I click on that, there it is, DOS box up and running. Just like that, we've got DOS running. And to settle it in with your computer. If you bring your computer in, I can make sure that everything's talking nicely. So the worry is taken out of it that way. All right, if you need me on site, well, obviously there's more involved. I'll just show you the hardware. Now this little guy is what's over there. It's designed to stand because it's got a passive cooling system here. They also make a good little media center. So you can see that's the passive cooling. There's a heat pipe. CPU must be right there. And the hardware is a little bit limited in that you can only put one NVMe on here. There is a slot, it is capable of handling the 80mm NVMe's. It's got a small one in there now. That's 256 gigabytes. You could swap that out at a later date to a 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte, whatever you can get in that 80mm form factor. There's also a slot here, you can put Wi-Fi in here. These machines don't come with Wi-Fi. I do have USB Wi-Fi dongle, so that's simple enough. Hopefully I didn't get too far in the weeds. To recap, what I'm offering is basically a bridging technique to get from whatever you're using now to using Linux as your main system. And I'm offering two different configurations. A little machine like this, which you can tuck in behind your monitor, and a bigger machine like this, which is a bit more expandable for later on. And all of that is to make your path switching over from proprietary systems to something that leaves you in charge of your computers and making that affordable and simple and painless. Well, I guess that's it. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, ask a question, leave a comment. Bye for now.